All right, everybody, welcome back. Hopefully, you've been enjoying the Champs preview content we've been putting out. We have one match left in our winners round one. That's OpTic versus LAG. And happy Champs Week, everybody tuning in. Last match of the night going in on Thursday will be OpTic versus LAG. So, yeah, that's at 7:30 Eastern, so 6:30 Central, wherever you are in the world that time. So, this is the last one. Again, if you are curious about my bracket, I'll be putting out a bracket video later on in the week. But let's get into this matchup. So OpTic are 2-0 on the year, 6-2 in map count, 3-1 hardpoint. Maybe a good thing here is 2-0 in search and destroy versus LAG, and then 1-1 in control. Just looking at the overall player stats, I think this does show a bit of a story. You know, you're pretty close in terms of KD in hardpoint. This hasn't been like thrashings or anything like that. Obviously, you have a 3-1 hardpoint, but there's been some solid close maps here from LAG. Again, they've only played a couple of times, and it seems like Dashi has been destroying in search and destroy versus this squad, and then they are just ahead in control. So those are just those. And again, Flames probably only has one match. I think the last time they played was Major 3 qualifier. Was he even in this one? So he was in this one. But it was a 3-1. They won both hard points. Again, pretty close. 12 points, 27 points, a two-round 6-star, and a 3-2 high rise for LAG, which we'll get into, but that was a big map for them in last stage, but kind of fell off a little bit. Well, I guess for both teams, looking at this high rise control, those are just the overall stats. But again, a very close series. So stats don't tell everything. All right, let's jump into LAG. Surprised a lot of people at Major 4, obviously with that big upset over Ultra. But before we get there, let's just look at their overall stats. They are deep across the board in maps. 7-8 in hardpoint, 6-7 in S&D, 5-6 in control. This looks a lot worse because of the 0-6 on Major 4 Sunday, right? They got 3-0, 3-0 bopped by FaZe and Subliners. So when you look at their stats overall throughout Major 4, again, they play pretty much everything in hardpoint. They play most things, or they're willing to play most things in search and destroy, and yeah, they play all the maps in control. The big thing for them was getting this invasion control on track, but if you go to their vetoes, they have a couple of maps they mainly veto, but yeah, they play everything. And again, if you get rid of the 0-6, I'm not saying you have to, but this would be what, a 7-5, this would be a 6-4, this would be a 5-4, so it looks a lot better than kind of what the stats show overall, but you can't get rid of a Sunday. So, yeah, they kind of got bamboozled on that Sunday at Major 4. But yeah, massive improvement in their hardpoint. Let's deep dive into each game mode. In their hardpoint from Stage 3 to Stage 4. Obviously, when they brought Flames on, they just wanted to get better overall, and they did. You'll see 1-10 in hardpoint here. That was just abysmal. In Stage 3, they pretty much had to redo everything. It gets a lot better up to 7-8 in that Stage 4. So, massive improvement there. They were the rank 11 at holding, rank number 4 in breaking throughout Stage 4. This is very similar to their Major, where, you know, they got a top 3. They were number 10 in holding, number 4 in breaking. They went 3-2 in hardpoint at the Major itself. And I think the big thing is there is upset potential here, right? Maybe one sort of, if you're a little bit nervous, if you're an OpTic fan, there's obviously plenty to be nervous about. But going into this tournament, this team does show that against the top 4, they can take them down. And they did it in a way maybe we didn't see happening, right? It was a Karachi hardpoint. It was a 6-star hardpoint. It was a 6-star search and destroy. This was some of Ultra's best maps, and I don't think anyone would have picked LAG not only winning. I mean, maybe some people saw an upset here, but to do it through both hardpoints, I think is the impressive thing, right? This has been the number 1 hardpoint team throughout the year, so it was just a very solid team effort across the board. Nothing wild when you're going through these maps. DiamondCon's been insanely consistent for them. But you got Estro, who's really stepped up. But again, it's nothing crazy when you look stats-wise. Like, nobody really popped off. So that was, their Major. Then they go on to beat LA Thieves. And they did this a couple of ways, right? They did this you beat Ultra twice. Then if you look at the LA Thieves match, this was the Rio. They were down 100 or so points. I think we talked about it when we covered LA Thieves. So they've shown composure. This is a team the entire year, haven't had a lot of roster changes. They've stuck with it. And I think you're seeing glimpses of kind of what they have. And if you look at their Stage 4, they vetoed 6-star most of it, which that is one of OpTic's stronger maps. 6-star hardpoint. The other one was Vista. But outside of that, they're willing to play it pretty much anything. And I think the Vista, they're probably not going to veto because OpTic's Vista hasn't been that great. But Major stats, again, very similar to Stage 4. This is just a Major where they played 5 hardpoints. You had a diamond count right around a 1.1. Everybody else was 0.95 or so. Maybe the one player that fell off a little bit at the major was Fame at a 0.8. But again, you're talking about you probably have 2 3-0s here. And someone, when you're getting 3-0'd, is going to have some ugly stats. But this is relative to what they had. It's not like they're out slaying teams. They're staying close with teams right around 0.95 overall as a team KD. So that's just their hard points. But again, I think the one player that really stepped up for their hard point at the major was Estriel. I think he had like around a 0.9 online. He got a lot better here at the major. Search and Destroy, they were 6 and 7 throughout stage 4. They vetoed Karachi Invasion depending on the matchup. They'll probably veto Invasion here, because that's been OpTic's go-to. Well, especially if you look at their stage 3, that was their go-to. So yeah, if you look at these two maps, that's kind of what they veto. They've picked 6-star 7 times, which will be interesting because I know OpTic is down to play it, but this LAG team is sneaky good in sort of retakes and smoke plays. There's a match that just sticks out to me. I think it was against Carolina Online. Yeah, the first one, in which they played a Rio and a 6-star, and this was a 6-2, 6-2. And both of these maps, they just outclassed them in those sort of 4-on-4 smoke skirmishes. So this is a team where maybe a 6-star, you avoid it if you're an OpTic. We'll see what other bag of treats that they have. But LAG, they're down to play some smaller maps in S&D, play around some smokes. A big reason why they have the number 1 retaking team on 6-star, number 4 on Rio. Again, they do not mind chaos. They do not mind the smoke plays. They're all about that. One thing I guess you do look at their stage 4, outside of 6-star, they're 2 and 4 across the board. So it's not the strongest map pool. So you look at 6-star, they're 4 and 3, 0 and 2 on Invasion in Karachi. Again, they don't play it too often. They have a win on Rio. They have a 1 and 0 on High Rise. And I think that was at the LAN versus LA Thieves. So they weren't even playing that online. They just opted to play it going into the major. Rank number 9 in opening duel rate and rank number 11 in conversion rate. Both of these are low throughout stage 4, but if you look at the major, it did get better. Their conversion rate improved to number 2. They were still ranked 10 in opening duel rate, so that was right around the same. So you had a rank 9 in opening duel rate online, a rank 10 at LAN, but their conversion rate, so basically when you get a first blood and you turn the round into a 4-on-3, are you then winning that round, right? In sort of a trade battle, are you not making mistakes, not throwing away lives? Sometimes there's just a very quick trade. If you're watching Search and it goes from a 4-on-3 into a 3-on-3 because there's a trade. That obviously to me doesn't impact this that much, but the fact that they went from a number 11 to number 2 at the major at 83% shows that whatever they were doing, they did get better at Search and Destroy, especially when they found those first bloods. All right, stage 4 stats. Again, maybe the one standout here is Fame, but again, opening duel win percent, nobody's over 50. Your highest is 50 between Estriel and Fame. But I think Fame, I don't know, it feels like when this guy's locked in, I think we say that a lot about entry players, just these guys who take the early fights, your Abizis, your Shotsies, go on and on. If those players are winning and having a 1.2 KD, they're pretty difficult to beat in general. So let's see if Fame can keep that up. Looking at their control, they were 5 and 6 throughout their online stage, but they did have a major drop off there at the major 4. At the tournament, they went to 1 and 3. So I guess again, if you look at Sunday, it's 1 and 1. But I think if they want to upset teams, that control has to get better. So their high rise did get worse, going from stage 3 to stage 4. They were 3 and 2 in stage 3. So you look at this high rise control, 3 and 2. They pretty much played that in Karachi. Where if you look at their major 4, this is where they introduced a lot more invasion. Right, they're down to play all 3, but maybe they felt like they really had to work on their map pool. Their invasion did get better. The problem is that their high rise got a lot worse. They sat right at 1 and 4. In their high rise. And that just happens when you're testing different maps. You're focused on other things. But, and if they want to cause upsets, it feels like control's got to get better. And a big thing for their high rise is they went from the number 4 ranked defense at number 11 throughout stage 4. Went 1-0 on Karachi. And it feels like they're willing to play Karachi. If you look at major 3 or stage 3, like they're down to play it. They were 1 and 2 right here. So it looked like, again, they weren't playing invasion. They were pretty much avoiding it. But they were playing everything else with a big focus on high rise. But major 4, their high rise got worse. Invasion got better. Karachi pretty much stayed the same. So we'll see, what they want to play against OpTic. That's LAG's individual stats. Now we'll look at OpTic. There's a lot of places we can go here. Obviously, a big focal point is going to be the Search and Destroy. But I will say there are other weak points going into champs for OpTic. Like there were clear signs that they won major 3, but there was still a vast room for improvement, even in Search and Destroy, which I'll get to here in a moment. But it's not like they won major 3 through winners in a dominant fashion, right? There were some gruelers. We went to some map 5s, deep in rounds. Obviously, their hardpoint was insane. But specifically, if you look at their search and control on the year, there's always been room for improvement. So hardpoint stayed solid. It wasn't the prettiest of stages stats-wise, which I'll get into here in a second. But the big thing here, search and destroy 2-12, it's a 12 loss streak or 12 losses in a row. It's not good. Control stayed right around 4-4. You probably love that to get better, going from Major 3. But here's your Major 3 stat win. So the control just in general, there's obvious room for improvement. Search and destroy was 5-3, but hardpoint was 10-2 with the Major if you look at their win. So, 9-5, you're just going to have some hardpoint losses, but hopefully your other game modes are good enough to get you right back into the series or get you to your map pick in map number 4. And simply put, this stage, they were not. But like I talked about, their hardpoint, 9-5. They stayed ranked number 4, and it's not like they have the prettiest stats, right? I mean, you have Kenny at a 0.9, you have Shots at a 0.98, your overall team KD is a 0.98. It's not really what we expect for a roster like this. I'd probably say like around a 1.1. But in general, you're still 9-5. So you were getting wins. It's really all that matters. If you now look at if you look in depth at their hardpoint this stage, they were ranked 10 in breaking this stage. They went from a rank number 1 in rotation win percentage in stage 3 to rank number 9 in stage 4. So if you're kind of just looking at like maybe what went wrong, why they had some more losses, maybe why their stats weren't as great, could just be due to that. I mean, when you're winning rotations, they set you up for easy kills. So we'll see how the rotations are at champs. If you look at specifically their map pool, they were 6-1 on Karachi, 6-star Rio, 3-4 in Subbase in Vista. And I don't think that's the worst thing for OpTic to be 6-1 on those 3 maps, because in general, most teams are probably going to veto Subbase versus them, and then they have a choice to either play a Vista or Karachi, and it looks like their Karachi is getting better. You'd maybe love if their Vista was getting good around this time, because there's some really strong teams on Vista, but I feel like against a team like New York, you're probably going to veto Vista. I mean, which you can see, they vetoed it 4 times. It's the map they vetoed the most. So there was a trend here. Like, we don't love Vista, but the fact that they were 6-1 elsewhere really opened it up. I think most teams are probably going to veto either Subbase or 6-star versus them. So that'll give them the choice to play a Rio, a Karachi, and then one or the other, right? I mean, they can't veto both. So there's lots of room for OpTic in their hardpoint. I guess maybe like they were 2-2, right? On Subbase, like you might be a little concerned. I'm not that concerned, because what are they on the year? 12-2, whatever. I think any OpTic fan's going to be like, okay, we're playing Subbase, we're feeling good. Okay, now let's focus on the search and destroy. There's a lot of bad here, to simply put it. You're on a 12-loss streak. That's not good. They were 0-6 in map 5s. That's not good at all. They were number 11 in opening duel rate. That's almost the worst. They were the worst in conversion rate. Again, that is when you get a first blood and you're 4-on-3, how often are you winning this round? In which they were last place. Normally last place is right around like 50 to 60%. Our top teams are usually around 80% or so. So very much need to work on that. They were also 12th on retake percentage, which I think, when some of these maps come into play, like your Rios and your 6-stars, that's when these start to become a big deal. Your Karachis. So you could just see it wasn't one glaring thing. It was all of the things. Where if you look at their Major 3 stats and where they won, they had the number 4 conversion rate, they had number 5 retake, they had number 2 plant win percentage. I think their opening duel rate was still pretty low. It was around like 10, I want to say. So there's still room for improvement there, or if they're just trading effectively, it really doesn't matter. But I think you'd probably want someone like, either Dashi finding, shots, or Shotsy through the smoke to maybe find some more first bloods. But that's kind of the least of your concerns, I think, if you're an OpTic fan. So if you look back at Major 3 or Stage 3, kind of what changed, going from 2-12 to what Stage 3, they were 10-6. It wasn't the best, but it was a good enough. So you take away this invasion, and they were 4-6, which I didn't even realize how good. I knew like they played a lot of invasion at the major, but I didn't realize they were 6-0 throughout the stage, and I think it was 4-0 at the major. So again, like there was room for improvement. I guess like the mentality. Like obviously you come off an event win, and it just felt like they let their foot off the gas for a bit, but there was obvious room to work on things, because going into stage 4, you just know you're probably not going to see this a lot. If you're 6-0, nobody's going to play you on it. You know, you've been working on your high-rise search and destroy a lot. Like, this is good. It's got around 50%. But you just kind of knew, like, we had to work on stuff elsewhere. And then if you look at this, you know, you play invasion a couple of times. You go 0-2. You keep this right around 50%. There's just still holes. There's gaps that you had to improve on, and they didn't. Like, their map pool was still an issue to me if you just look at the stats, if you look at the numbers. So, a bit surprised, I think, maybe when you start to look at some of the numbers and, yes, how they performed going from Major 3 into a Major 4. But, yeah, this was their Major 4 match against Heretics. You know, you win both hardpoints. You won a sub base. You won a Rio. I mean, it was close, but you won it. You lose round 11, game 5, Karachi. You lost a search. And then you lose that high-rise control that you worked so hard on throughout the year, which, you know, those are going to happen. You're hoping not to get 2-3-5. So that was their one match. And then here's a look at your S&D stats throughout the stage. I mean, they're not going to look pretty after everything I just went through. Obviously, Pred really struggled, but nobody else is over a 1 outside of Shotzi. Opening dual win percentage outside of Kenny, 40% and below. So I think for OpTic, yeah, you're hoping to find a lot of search improvement going into champs. Maybe not even a lot. Can you find a map where you can go 6-0 on again? Or a 4-0 on at the tournament? Because that's what champs is. It's a little bit different, just prep-wise. But tons of room for OpTic to work on in search. Now looking at control. Control hasn't been the prettiest. If you look at stage 3, 6-7. If you looked at stage 4, 4-4. They were much better in the first 2 stages. They were 15-9 in stages 1 and 2 combined. So, you were 10-11. Last one, again, there was just a lot of room for improvement here. I think the one good thing, they were the number 1 invasion team throughout stage 4. They were 2-0, a number 1 attacking team. Maybe one problem is kind of what I talked about. They went 1-3 in high rise, and this is a map they worked on again and again and again and again in control. If you look at Major 3, they played it 6 times. Major 2, were they playing this yet? No, this is when they started to play it. So they were hoping to get this around 60%, or 50%, and then it fell off here. And there's some reasons for that. In stage 3, they were number 3 attacking team and number 5 defending team. And I even think that number 5 defending team, it was something like 8-2 in rounds, right around there. Where stage 4, you got worse in attacking, you got worse in defending, and their defense at rank 7, it only had a 50% win ratio. I'm actually surprised they were still ranked 7. I thought they would be ranked lower with a 50% win ratio. So we'll see if they can get their control back on track. I guess the question just kind of is, map pool wise, are they going to play a little bit more Karachi? They were 1-1 in stage 4. Maybe they start to go back to vetoing high rise. They were the number 1 defending team in 4-1 rounds. Number 11 attacking team with 1-4. But I think with this roster, somebody like Shotzi, someone like that can win you an offensive Karachi round. Like, I don't think they'll go 1-4 again. So we'll see if they find more wins there. But that's it at OpTic. Like, again, outside of your hard point, there is a ton of work to do. I think the big thing is the obvious one in search and destroy, but it's not like control was, it was much better, but could be better. Could be better for sure going into champs. All right, let's go talking points. I mean, there's no pressure on LAG. This is a team they stuck together all year long. I will say they do need to come out swinging. This is a home event. Don't get rattled by the crowd. And I think their control does have to be better if they want to cause more upsets. Again, 1-3 at stage 4. I think for OpTic, with how much you're probably focusing on search, hopefully the other things stay better. Hopefully hardpoint stays around 75%, because if it doesn't, might be in big, big trouble. And I think a big question for me is what happens if they lose map 1, just right out of the gate? Because then you pretty much have to win search, right? The pressure's going to be on. And then just from an individual standpoint, I think all the pressure's on them. But you have the home crowd buff, which I think the last 2 times we were in Texas, Vanguard, they won. And then MW2 last year, they got 2nd. That sounds about right to me. So those are the big talking points for me. But now let's do map vetoes for this one. Hardpoint wise, I don't know what OpTic's going to want to do. Versus somebody like an LAG. Let's look at what LAG did throughout this Major 4. Maybe a Vista and a sub-base veto here. So maybe OpTic, veto. Again, this is all just based off. Scrims could be going very well. LAG, veto, sub-base, I assume. OpTic will probably pick 6-star. How was LAG 6-star? Did they play it at all? 1-1? They vetoed this 7 times. You could get a 6-star. But I think for OpTic, I'd probably rather veto sub-base. So I think you're going to get that. And then LAG, probably pick Rio here. No, they'll probably go Karachi. Never mind. They're going to pick Karachi. That's probably the hard point, 6-star Karachi. That's my guess. Let's go search. What, LAG, veto invasion. OpTic, you're going to veto. How much should they play 6-star? Not a ton. Well, 1 and 3. Just have a lot of losses here. What did they do in stage 3? Rio a lot? I personally would veto 6-star versus LAG, but they might stick with a Rio veto. What did I say they played against them in the qualifier? 6-star high rise. Let's just say OpTic vetoes Rio. Let's stick with that. LAG would probably pick 6-star. Pick Karachi a lot. They went 0-4. Major 3, they were picking a lot of everything. I'd go Karachi. And then control-wise, again, it depends who's Team A or Team B. I think we'll probably see an invasion. That's my guess. I think both teams will play safe, but LAG's been getting better there. There is, again, the option where you veto Karachi the most. Yeah, maybe like an LAG, veto Karachi, OpTic, pick invasion. Yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. So hopefully you're all enjoying the video. Enjoy the video. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in and watching all of these. Again, my bracket will probably be coming out later. And then if I'll see you at Champs, make sure to stop by and say hello. Enjoy the tournament. And I'll see you next time. Have a good one.